Hello guys and welcome to Web Scraping with Puppeteer. What is web scraping? Well, web scraping is just getting data from any website that you want. For example, a title, an image. If it's an e-commerce website, it could be some kind of promotion, reviews, product description, anything you like. And there can be many use cases for that. Let's look at a real world example. So I had a client with a really old e-commerce website and a really old CMS. It had a lot of products and a very complicated database structure with scattered data all over the place. And instead of extracting data from that database, figuring out and writing all the SQL scripts and stuff like that, I just scraped it and moved it all to Shopify just by using a standard JSON format. I could format it to CSV and import the data to the new store. So instead of spending hours and days figuring out how to extract this data from their old website, which had a lot of extra fields and extra relationships between products, I just scraped it. So let's look at how we can do that. Okay, so in order to start, you'll need a target, some kind of project that you want to scrape. In my case, I will choose this one because it's open source. I can just clone it and serve it on any server I want. In this case, I have a Mac, so I can just run a simple Python server and serve this website. So if you want to do this, you can just click on code and then copy this, go to your directory, just do git clone, just clone it to any directory you want. And then you can just do the Python server command. You can just execute this command. You can also do this on MAMP or whatever service you want to serve it on. Or you can target any website that you have already. We're just using this for example. So if you will be going to 8000, port 8000, you'll see this website, and it's just a e-commerce website, very nicely looking. You can just go into the product and that's where we can play around with it. So let's start. So first of all, as setup, you'll need a couple of files to make Puppeteer work. So one of them is browser.js, which looks like this, and it starts a browser as you see, launches Puppeteer. So you can just copy and paste this one. Next one is a page controller, which also assigns a browser instance to a page scraper. The next one is index.js, which ties everything together. And then for the npm project itself, you can just do npm init and then go through a questionnaire and set up a project. And you just need this dependency, which you can install by npm install Puppeteer and save it. I also have git ignore here, which ignores node modules. You can add that as well. And finally, we need page scraper.js, which will have all of our scraping code. So let's start looking into how you can scrape any text on the website. Most important tool in your toolbox is the inspect element. So let's just launch it. You can launch it by pressing the shortcut command or just right clicking and going to inspect element. Then you can select the selection tool and then click on any element that you want to scrape. So for example, this title here, we can just copy this class name, make sure that there is no class name where it's also defined but is not meaning the title. Let's see. Okay, we have it repeated here, but we can see that it's product right side details, so it's probably a template thing, so we can still use it. We see that it has the same title, but by default, if you don't specify otherwise, it will grab the first occurrence that it finds. So let's try to do that. Let's head down to page scraper and then define the URL that you'll be scraping. In our case is this one, and then let's define page, say await browser new page, and say page go to this URL, which we defined in the up section. Then we need to wait for selector because we have to make sure that the DOM is loaded before we start doing anything with it. So in our case, I think this one is the best element to wait for to load. So we can just say await page wait for a selector and just say app content. Then we can say that page is loaded, and let's try to grab this title. Let's say, so title await page evaluate, which takes in as a parameter an async function, and here you just return whatever you want from this page. So you can say document.querySelector and just say pd detail name, and then say text content. You can grab whatever you want from this particular element. We just need the text content. So we have the title. Let's try to log it out. By the way, logging will only work outside the evaluation function. If you want to make sure that it works in evaluation function as well, you'll need to write some code to make this happen. But by default, only this will be logged outside the evaluation function. So let's try to run this. Let's say npm run start. As you can see, it opens up the browser and you see the page that we are scraping, and we see the title. Now let's select this tool again and just click on the price, and we see that there's a price class as well. Let's try to grab this one. Let's say price, and then here we can just say price. I think it was, yep, text content, and then we can say price. Let's run this again, and we can see we have the price. Now you don't necessarily have to do this with each evaluation. You can do this at once. So for example, if we would say here that we want to return the object with title, and then we also want the price object, just say price, and then we call all of this variable product, and then we can just console log product, delete this, and let's see. Here it is. So you can think of the evaluation function as if you're diving into a page, getting something out of there, and then going back and doing whatever you want with those variables and information that you pulled out of there. So let's see another example. Let's say we don't want the text content, but we want HTML instead. So for example, this one, let's see. What's the best? I guess this one, policy list. Let's see. So let's say we want policy HTML. Let's say document query selector. Grab this, and then see, let's say inner HTML. Let's see. And here we have the HTML for this element. So you can use any attributes you want. So let's say we also want to grab a video, which is displayed right here. So let's see how we can think about this. So we want the YouTube URL. So we also see that this is a YouTube video, obviously, so we can try to look for this URL inside of the inspect tool. We can just say youtube.com and see what we find. Okay, so you see that there's an iframe which has this embed URL. Let's see if there are more iframes in this page. Maybe we can just target iframe and that's gonna be it. Yes, it's only one iframe, so we can just say video URL, and we can just say iframe. Now from iframe, what do we want to grab? We want to grab the source to have the URL, so let's just say source. Let's see what we have. Here we have the source. So you can target anything you want from this web page. Let's say you want to target some kind of meta element. So let's expand the head element, and we can see that there is some meta information here. We can, for example, try to grab description. So in order to debug any element, you can go into console and just see document, query, selector, and just try to target your element. So if you don't have any idea on how to target it, you can just right click, go to copy, and then copy selector. Just try to paste it in here. And now you see you have the meta element. In our case it's empty, but if you would want some details of that element, you can just say text content, and you would see the text content of this element. Now, in order to properly target this element, this would not be a very proper way of targeting it, because it's the third child of the meta element. So if developers of the website would place any meta element between those two, this logic would not work anymore. So that's not the best way to select it. So in our case, we want description. So what we want is actually just select the meta element which has the name description. So we just can just say name description. Just have to make sure that all the syntax is proper, and then we have the description here. If we delete text content, you'll see that we have the same result as here, but for scraping this is better because this is time proof. So this will always work as long as the meta name is description. So let's scrape something more complicated, and those will be reviews. So in reviews we have 3 reviews here. They are repeating. They also, if you inspect those, they have the same classes. So same classes, and we have to make sure that we get all of them. And one thing that you have to think about in this case, we have to click these reviews in order to see them. So you have to make sure before scraping that those reviews are actually seen before you click on this reviews button, meaning that it's not as asynchronously loaded when you click on it. So if we go here and just copy this text here and refresh the page, and then we haven't opened the reviews yet, and we have to see if those are loaded. And we can see that those are loaded, so we can actually scrape them without opening this tab. But if we had to open this tab, we could also do this really easily in Puppeteer. So let's try to target that button. Let's just select it, and we can see that there is an ID of view review. So we can just go to our code and say button equals await page $, to select it, and we can say ID view review. Now let's say that there's a timeout just for us to see how it works. Let's see 3000, and we can say button.click. Let's try to run this. Let's scroll down. Oh, now we change to reviews. That's because we have this code that clicks on reviews. So if that would be running asynchronously, in other words, if you have to click on this before it appears in the source, that would actually work, because Puppeteer would click on this button, and then we just would have to make sure that we wait for a selector, at least, for example, this text or the first review, just to make sure that it's all loaded, and then we can start scraping them. So in order to scrape them, let's see what we can do about it. If we inspect element, as mentioned before, it has a review O class, which looks like a class that defines a review. Let's see if that's true. Let's go to console and say document.query selector all and say class review O, and we see that we have 3 nodes, exactly how many nodes we see right here. This means that it most likely is the right class to use. So let's head down to the code and let's say review elements await page $signs and say review O. Now let's also create an empty array of reviews where we'll store them. This will query for those reviews, and what we now have to do is just go through all of them. So let's say for let I equal 0, I less than review elements dot length I plus, and here we can start grabbing whatever we want from those elements. So let's start by grabbing the name of the person. Review own name, const name equals await review elements, grab the element by this index, evaluate it. We are now in the context of that review element, so we have to grab the name, and then we evaluate it, and we just need the text content from it. So now we should have the name. Let's try to log it out. Let's run this again. All right, there we go. We have John Doe. Exactly the names. Yep, that works. Okay. So what else we want to grab? Of course, we want to grab the content. It's text. We want text. We also want maybe a date. Date. Just date. So name, text, date. What we also want to do is maybe grab the rating. And there's 2 ways of doing this. One is simple and the other one is more complicated. So the simple one is that we have the number of stars here, so we can just grab that. Let's see how we can do that. We can just say rating. Say rating from text, and here we can just say rating and then grab this span element because it's the only element there is in this div. So we can just say span, grab text content, a rating from text, and then let's try to run this. Here we have rating from text. So if we want to make it into a number, we would do something like parse int replace just make sure to just leave a number, something like that. There is definitely a more clever way to do this, but I'm not really concerned about that right now. npm run start. There we go, we have the number. But what if we didn't have a number? We would just have stars. That would be more complicated. Let's see how we could do this. So first we have to determine what differentiates a star that's filled from a star that's not filled. Let's see. So seems like, okay, so the before element is the same. Okay, so there is a different class name for this star. So if I would say R instead of S, that would be an empty star. So that means that all we have to do is count the elements that have this class name and we would have the rating. So let's try to do that. So let's say rating from stars. Let's say review elements and of course await. And then do $signs. And then say review o.fas. And here we would just need the length of that, because it just counts how many elements there are with this class name of a full star. So let's see. There we go. We have the same result. Great. So let's look at how to scrape multiple pages. So the problem that we have right now is that the template we were using does not have multiple pages. For example, for product, it only has one page, so we can't really test scraping multiple pages with it. It's good for practicing one page scraping, but it will not work for multiple ones. So for this, we have to find another target. In my case, I can use my blog because it has multiple posts, it has multiple pages, and it's perfect for scraping. So let's do that. So if I go to this page, I can see that there are multiple blog posts, and if I click on one, I can see that there's a title which we can scrape as well as the content. So that's perfect for us. So let's see what we can do about it. Let's delete almost all of the code that we had before. So let's leave just the waiting and going to the page itself. Also, let's change the target URL. Blog. And then we also have to change this selector because it's different. Let's see what it is. Looks like it's page. Now from that, we can just go into the posts and see what class there is. So there is a class post item, which has also a link to it, which is perfect. So first thing we have to do is grab all of the links in order for us to go to them afterwards. So let's say const links page.evaluate async. Then let's say links equals empty array. And then let's grab all of the elements that correspond to blog posts. So let's say elements equals await document dot query selector all, because we need multiple ones, and say post item because we have post item here. Now for all of them we can just look through them. Element of elements, let's do that the link is await l.href, and then we just push it to the array. Then we can just return it and just say links. All right, let's run that. We have a promise, so we have to put await here. And here we have the links. So what we have to do now is just to go into each of those and scrape the title and content. So let's see how we can do that. Let's say for each link of links, let's say await page go to link, then say await page wait for selector, and we have to figure out what's the best selector here. So blog post seems to be perfect for this. So let's wait for this to be loaded, for this selector to be visible. So let's try to grab the title. Title equals await page.evaluate async, and let's say return document query selector. Let's see how we can select the title. It's blog post dot underscores title, and then let's say text content, and we also have to have an await here, and let's log it out. npm run start, and we can see the titles are logging out here. Perfect. What we need now is the content, so let's see how we can do that. Okay, so there is blog post HTML, so let's just say blog post, and here we will output a new object which is title. We can say this, and for the body or HTML we can just say HTML. We can also say just inner HTML here to get the HTML, and now we can create a new variable which is called blog posts, and let's just push it to this array. Now let's log it out. npm run start, and now it's going through all of the pages, and we can see that we have title and body for each of the pages, and we can do whatever we want with it. Thank you very much guys for watching. I hope this helped, and if it did, I'm really happy because that's my most important goal. See you in the next one.